This is Smith Sharp, and you're listening to Navigating Clarity.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Navigating Clarity. We're so glad you've joined us today.
We're going to have a good time.
We're going to have a good time. Yeah.
It's always a good time with you, Kat.
Oh, it's a great time. I mean, what's better to do on your Monday morning?
I mean, this is it. This is the high
Wake
watermark.
up with Navigating Clarity.
That's right. Wait, good time.
Yeah, so you talked a lot yesterday about accusation to justification to retaliation. Then you gave us the other side of accusation to illumination to restoration.
Wow, look at that.
But then
Man.
you talked about the devil being the accuser. And so if both sides are accusation, and one side's not the devil because it's what we want, the illumination to restoration, why do you use accusation in both? You kind of got me there. A little confused.
I think it all starts off that way. I think it starts off that way where I have a problem with something that you're doing. Okay, so I think that's, so in any conflict that we have, you have hurt feelings I used accusation because that seems to be a fair starting point. So when, judgment begins with the household of God, or Paul says, if you've got something against your brother or whatever, you go to him, or you bring somebody with you, or then, it starts off that way. But if you're pursuing a biblical model, then an attitude of your heart then produces a different kind of connection with that person. So illumination, wanting to shed light on something, is very different than justifying, like building a case. Okay, so if I'm building a case against you, then what I'm doing is I'm really amping up on my side what I'm going to leverage against you to make sure you were wrong and that I have a right to get even. Illumination is different. Illumination is, I want the best for you and for me, right? So we, like, together. And that is, if you can have a we at the end of it, us, then that's reconciliation. If I win and it's you over there and me over here, then that's not reconciliation. That's the opposite of reconciliation. Mm-hmm. I mean, you may get even, you may feel better, but you are not in relationship with that person, not in a positive sense. So.
And do you say we do both kind of day in and day out, both sides of it, or are we strictly one side or the other?
No, we're not one side or the other. We do both. And it's the permission we give ourselves. It's just harder to do illumination. It's just harder. It's like our basic instinct is to get even, is to say you were wrong, you hurt, because our feelings are hurt. Or I see and I don't like it, or it didn't make me feel good, or I deserve something that I feel like I didn't get from you. And so what we want to feel is we want to feel that it's fair, that you hurt me, so you have to pay something. And that's eye for an eye, which is, Jesus said, you've heard it said, eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth, but I'm gonna say that's not the way I'm doing things. That if somebody asks for your shirt, you give them your tunic as well, or ask you to carry something a mile, carry them two. I mean, so he's saying, like, don't get even. Be like your Father. Be like God. Work towards reconciliation. I mean, that's what God is doing in Jesus, is creating reconciliation with the world. And in doing that, I think we do suffer like Jesus in a way. I think that's what makes it harder.
Because our feelings are always getting hurt.
Because our feelings are getting hurt. And if we don't retaliate, then we just... And a lot of times those hurt feelings aren't satisfied. We choose to forgive somebody instead of getting even. But that doesn't really satisfy you a lot of times. And so as Christians, we're just living in a fallen world, and we get hurt, and a lot of times that hurt isn't satisfied.
And we have to just kind of live with the unsatisfaction, almost keeping a kingdom perspective of it instead of almost a worldly perspective, because we're always going to be unsatisfied if we're not focused on the kingdom.
And we just won't do it. We just will not do it unless we look at the cross, like look at Jesus and go, that wasn't fair. You know, right? I don't forgive you because you deserve to be forgiven. That will never work, because you don't deserve to be forgiven, probably. But I don't deserve to be forgiven. But Jesus forgave me. I forgive you because I know that I'm forgiven by Jesus and I didn't deserve it. So I've already got something I don't deserve. And if I can see that and appreciate that and be grateful for that, then I don't have to make you make it right or make it even or make it fair, or, you know, I don't have to. I won't do it if I'm not looking at Jesus going, I cost him his life.
Yeah. And oftentimes we forgive, but we forgive with resentment. So how? So you're saying forgive. I'm like, okay, I'll forgive, but we'll forgive with resentment. And so I guess it's all in how you see it. It's knowing that I'm actually truly not forgiving a person. So kind of how do you balance that?
100%. No, you're just right. You're just all over it. Like, we can forgive, but we forgive with resentment if we're just swallowing it, you know? But if we look at Jesus and go, he forgave me, I didn't deserve it. If you look at Jesus and go, he was God, and he's forgiven me, I can do that for this person. You know, their offense isn't, I'm not having to get on a cross for anybody. You know, I mean, yeah, my feelings got hurt, but I'm not dying for anybody. People aren't, you know, mocking me. I'm not there in shame. I don't have people, you know, accusing me of things that, and me having to pay the price of death for it. And I'm the recipient of that. I'm the recipient of that. Now let me hold on to that. And how can I turn and condemn my brother over here, my sister, my wife, or my whoever friend for their little tiny thing when I've been the recipient of this giant thing?
So then think about it from a broader perspective, like all our different disagreements in the world, whether we disagree with like the health system or the political system or a whole array of topics. Do we just broadly forgive them? Kind of how does that look like? Does that make sense?
No, explain that a little bit more.
So example, like if you are totally against Fauci and what the health system is saying and all the ultra processed foods, just in a sense.
Okay.
And just the medicine that people are pushing on you, and how do we then just say, okay, our country's getting sicker, but I'm taking a stance over here, but I'll just forgive them for that. But not desiring to make change, I guess, is where I'm getting at.
Well, I think part of being a Christian is taking responsibility. You know, so if something isn't right and something isn't good and something isn't helpful, then part of our responsibility is working towards change. So like slavery, let's just, as an example, when our country was in that situation, it's not good. It's not good to do nothing. It's not good to justify it, right? It's not good to justify it, and it's not good to just do nothing. It's sitting right there in front of you. And see, Jesus took responsibility and that's what's so great about Jesus. Like when you compare Jesus to Adam, right? The difference. Adam sinned and took no responsibility. Jesus didn't sin, but took all the responsibility. And so when you have a situation like that, you have to work for the health and the welfare of human beings, for the betterment of human beings, just because you love human beings, right? I mean, how do you obey the great commandment and then allow slavery at the same time? I'm supposed to love my neighbor, not imprison my neighbor or not leave my neighbor helpless. I've got to do what I can where I can, but I don't do it in a way that takes me where the devil makes me just as bad as the people I'm accusing. I participate in it, but in a way that helps reconciles people.
So like we could take the Civil War movie, for example. This might be a more clear explanation.
Oh, wow.
And people are like saying it's a projection in the future, or some people are saying it's just rising anxiety levels or fear, and the purpose of the movie was just to do things like that, to increase fear, increase anxiety, have people see a perspective of what could possibly be the future, whether it will be or not be. So it's our responsibility to then do what about that? Because obviously we don't want our country going into another civil war. But from a kingdom perspective, how do we look at that and justify a movie that is just increasing anxiety rates?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. That's a tough. I mean, that's a question. I think it's all in how we talk about it. I mean, if we have seen something like that and we say, all right, we participate in just promoting the anxiety, or actually blaming the anxiety on this group or that group, or just contributing to more darkness. But you could look at it another way too, and you could be an agent of light in that, right? You could be an agent of light and go, look, this is where we need, this is if we intensify our animosity towards each other enough, that's exactly where we're going to end up. And we don't need to do that. Therefore, having that movie, let's say, as a foil, you say, this is what contributes to going in that direction. So let's just not do that. I mean, really, let's just, there it is. We've had a civil war before. Other countries have had civil wars. It is a possibility that could happen. Let's be smart and realize what takes a country in that direction, and then just don't do that. So I think if we participate in continually amping it up, just keep getting more and more and more, the discourse, it keeps eliminating any illumination and keeps more just driving towards justification and accusation and what was that last one? Retaliation. Yeah. Then that's where we go. We know what the two sides are, but we just keep. You know what? God said, this is how far away from God we are. This is how far away from God we are. Regardless of what we say, this is how far away from God we are. The Bible makes it clear that our enemy is the devil. Makes it crystal clear that it's spiritual forces. It names the spiritual forces. We're clear about what they are. There is no leader anywhere saying the enemy is the devil. There's nobody on TV saying the enemy is the devil, right? There's no news channel saying the enemy's the devil. Nobody's, but God is saying that. That's what God is saying, is that the enemy is the devil and the way the devil works. And it is crystal clear in the Bible, and nobody is paying that any attention at all. That's how far away from God we actually are. We're not even listening to him when he is telling us who the enemy is. We won't even listen to it. We won't say it. Why? Because we would be or our leaders would be mocked out. They would be clean. People would say they're a kook, or they're a wacko, or, just a religious nut or something like that. And that's how far away from God we are. We wouldn't go, wow, he's right or she's right. That's exactly what it is. That's exactly where we are. God's exactly right. We're not listening to that at all. Not one bit. Nowhere.
So
Not even part of the equation.
So to start, we got to see the enemy as the devil.
Well, we got to know. Yeah, we got to know where the enemy is and who the enemy is. Yeah, I'd say that's exactly right.
Do you think it's because the enemy necessarily is not something tangible? Like I can't look at you and be like, you're the enemy.
Right.
You're tangible to me.
We want it to be the other side. We don't want it to be the devil. We want it to be the other side, because we can condemn the other side. We can blame the other side. We can justify our actions against the other side. We like that. We've got control. I've got the answers. I can solve the problems. We just need to destroy the enemy. Who's the enemy? The other side. When really, if we destroyed the enemy, which was on the other side, America would stop being America, because we'd no longer be a democracy if we destroyed the enemy if it was the other side.
And nobody wants that.
And nobody wants that. Except that's exactly what we're doing. That's what we're doing our best to do. And then we say, yeah, but that's just the way it is. That's just the way the world works. And that's 1,000% true. That is 1,000% true. And that shows us how far away from God we actually are. That we accept this way of doing things and not his way of doing things. The world's way of talking and not God's way of talking. What Christians are called to, not the rest of the world, what Christians are called to is seeing things the way God sees them. See, not the real world is this way. No, this isn't the real world. God's world is the real world. Christians are called to see things God's way, to talk about things God's way, to approach things God's way, not the world's way. See, what we do is we justify, we go, well, the real world is like this, and if you're going to win in the real world, you have to be the best at the game. And God's like, that's not what you should be trying to do. You're off base in what your goal is to start with.
It's just
Seek
in the world.
first my kingdom and my righteousness, then all these things will be added unto you. Not cave into the way the world works, win the way the world works, and use me to help you do it. That is not the way God wants it.
It's in the world, not of the world.
That's right. That's it. Yeah.
It was good. Great talking to you today.
Yeah, it's great to talk to you. I really appreciate talking to you too. So it's a lot of fun.
Well, we'll see you guys next week.
Okay.